Alrighty guys, welcome to this week 7. We're going to do some weather API stuff. So we're going to create a little app that's going to update the weather depending on whatever city you want. You can choose. Here's the requirements. So I'm going to use the API found here to visualize constantly updated data. Here's the requirements for the app. It needs to use an outside API. So if you have another API you've been wanting to play around with, go for it. You can use it just as long as it does the following. So it needs to use 10 pieces of data from that API and visualize it somehow. It can be as simple as just printing it to the page or actually doing some animations with it, which brings us to the other requirements. At least one of those pieces of data needs to be drawn out onto the page. In other words, be represented by a shape or some sort of, just something that's drawn. And then at least another one of those pieces of data needs to be animated in some way. Okay, whether it's a repeating animation, I don't know, it's up to you. I can just animate once and that's fine, but it needs to animate in some way, kind of like what we did last week. Okay, and then when finished, you should have a working app that's useful and can easily be used by other people. So it's something that where you're taking that data from the API and you're doing something useful with it. All right. You can use the weather API or go out and find your own. But just know if you go out and find your own, there may be a good chance I'm not going to know how to use it. So I may be able to help you, I may not. Okay, so I'm going to use openweathermap.org. What you need to do is sign up. All right, so I've already signed up here. I'm going to log out here. So go back home real quick. All right, so I'd hit sign up, put in a username, put in your email, put in your password, agree to everything. You're not a robot, then create account. I can't remember if you have to verify your account. You may have to. If so, that's fine. Just go out to your email and verify it. All right, so once you're in, the main piece of information that you're going to care about is over here with API keys. So this is going to be how you prove to them that you have an account. Okay, and if you go back to their main website here. So once you're in, just make sure you have this API key. If we click on API, it shows all the different stuff they have. So they have current weather data. That's what we're going to use. They have forecasts. So if you wanted to use this one instead, you definitely could. Just know that some of these are not, like right here, the 16-day daily forecast, it's available for all paid accounts. You have to pay to get that. But 5 days we can get for free. And current weather data we can get for free. Historical, I actually tried to mess with this at first, couldn't, because I think you have to pay for it. But these are the different APIs that they give you. But some of them are free, some of them aren't. All right, so just be aware of that. So what I did is I'm doing the current weather data, so I just went to the API documentation, and these are the things that we're going to use. And the cool thing is it gives you a bunch of examples on how you can mess with this API and grab data from it. All right, so that's the first thing, is just create an account. Make sure you have an API key. It should automatically give you one. If not, you can create one. Just give it a name, hit generate, and then it'll give you a key like this. All right. Now, once you have that, we got to come here and we got to get an idea of what we're going to be doing. So I'm getting current weather data for one location. So I'm going to grab location. I'm going to do it for Round Rock, because that's where I live. So I'm going to grab all the current weather data for Round Rock. So if we come down here, we get an idea of what we need to do. It says we recommend the API call the API by the city ID. So they're recommending that's the way to do it. So that's what I'm going to do. And this is an example of an API call. Now, if I click on this, this is what it's going to look like. It's JSON data, right? Now, remember, it looks like that because I installed that JSON formatter plugin. So just be aware of that. If it didn't, it would look like that and it'd be nasty and hard to read. So what I got to do is figure out what kind of API stuff or what I'm going to call and how I'm going to call it. So if I come down here, keep coming down, it'll show you how to do it by zip code, which I'm not going to do. You can call multiple cities. So cities within a rectangular zone. So if you want to do that, you can. I'm not going to. Or you can call several city IDs. Now, okay, so the limit to locations is 20, so a single ID counts as one API call. So there's 1, 2, 3 different cities, so that's 3 API calls. And that matters because in the free accounts, you only get a certain amount of API calls before they block you off. So one has a bunch of stuff here that don't really care about, but I'm just going to do the one city. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. All right, so I come down here, and there should be, yeah, right here. So list of city IDs can be downloaded here. If you click this, it's going to give you this zipped file that we can use to get your city ID. So it comes, you unzip it, and then you have this massive JSON file. I tried to open it with brackets, and it's too big. Files larger than 16 megabytes can't be opened, which is kind of crazy. So luckily I have Notepad++, so that actually can handle it. So you may need to open it in like Notepad or something, I don't know. So there's a bunch of cities. I mean, we're looking at, I don't know, a lot. And it looks like Notepad++ is dying on me right now. Yeah, maybe it can't handle it. Come on, you can do it. I'm going to pause it. Okay, there we go. So there's a bunch. I mean, look at, dude, we're at, oh my gosh, we're over 1 million lines. I think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, yep, 1.5 million lines. So chances are you're probably in here. So I hit Control F or Command F, and I just did a search for Round Rock. And there it is. So my ID is that. So that's what I need to put inside of my API call. So if you're going to do the single city, oh, and then there's Williamson County. That's interesting. So they do the county as well. But I'm going to need that ID when I create my API call. So we'll come back to this. So I'm going to go back to brackets here. I'm going to create my new folder. I will call this, we'll just call it weather. Oh, why does it do that? I don't understand why it does that. Whatever. So I got my weather folder, and I'll save this in here. And we're going to do everything in the same file. All right, so I'll just call it weather.html. Okay, now we're going to use the P5 again. We're going to use that to download things and to do everything we need here. So we're going to do that to animate everything and draw things. So I'm just going to grab this single file. I'm going to grab the min and save that in weather as well. If I can find it, there we go. Okay, there it is. And we'll throw it in. Script to source equals, bam. There we go. All right, so now we're embedding that library. We're able to draw. We're able to do what we need to do there. So that's all we got to do in the head tag. Now, if you remember, the way P5 works is there's certain functions in the language that you need to use. So preload is one we're going to use. Okay, we're going to use function setup. That's going to have the majority of the things that we're going to do in here. And then we have the function draw. Remember, that's the one that's treated as kind of like a loop. So that's how you can get the animation happening. And that's going to be it. There is going to be a ton of coding, and a lot of it is really mundane, to be honest. A lot of it's going to be converting military time into normal time, or getting just simple things to print out the way they should. I mean, it's just little stuff, but it's stuff that ends up making everything look a little bit better. But I'm going to try to do it line by line, section by section. Also, be aware that like the locations of everything in my app and stuff, it's already been figured out. I've already gone through all, like everything that I want it is exactly where I want it. Okay, so in preload, we're going to load the JSON file. So I got that. I'm just going to head over here, and I'm just going to grab, an example. Hold on, I just want to make sure. Yeah, I'm just going to grab this as the example. So I'm going to copy this because this is what I'm going to base my API call off of. So I'm going to load the JSON, that's that P5 command. And inside my quotes, I'm going to put that in there. And of course, it would help if I put all this in a script tag, wouldn't it? Like, where's my color coding? Yerk. All right. There we go. And then I will select all this stuff and tab it over. Alrighty. So inside of data, I'm going to load all this JSON data. So I'm going to have to type all this out completely. So HTTP, okay. So this is just saying I'm asking for data. The 2.5, I don't know, has something to do with the version maybe. I don't know. This is telling me that I want the weather data. Okay, and then the ID is the city that I want. All right, so that's the first thing we're going to give to it. So the ID of my city is right here. I'm going to do Round Rock. So I'm going to grab that, copy it, put it right here. Okay. Now we're feeding this API a bunch of information with these values inside of the URL. And to just chain them together and to give it more information, we use ampersand. So I'm going to give it my app ID to prove that I have an account. So if I don't do that, the information like this right here, if I open it up, this isn't real data. This is just fake. I don't even know if this gets updated. So we're not going to use that. But to be able to get real updated API data, we got to use our key. So I'm going to grab my key here. So copy that. Now to pass your API key into the open weather is we use app ID. Okay, so I'm going to throw that in there. Okay, and then to test this, we can save it here. And I'm going to grab this. And I'm going to go over here, open up a new tab, and see if we can grab the information, which we can. Right, so this is now using my API key. It should say Round Rock down here, which it does. Okay, so this is pulling all the information from Round Rock, and this is live data. This is continuously being updated. Now we got a problem though. If I come here and I look at this, it says the temperature is 291. I don't think so because we'd all be burning and dying. So this is using, I can't remember, units. Yeah, units format. I think the default is Kelvin, I think. Yeah, temperature in Kelvin is used by default. So this is, you have to go to the API stuff and you have to look around to see how you change these things. Well, we're actually, and I didn't know this, we're imperial, which I thought was interesting. Metric, the metric system that basically everybody else in the whole world uses. We use imperial. So what we need to do is come down here and say, okay, well, how do I do that? And it shows me right here. So I'd use the ampersand units equal and then whatever units I want to use. So I'm going to say imperial on my API call. So I'll come here and I'll just add to that ampersand units equal imperial. So now if I grab this, hopefully we'll start seeing things that kind of make sense. Okay, there we go. Like 64 degrees, yeah, that's definitely right. Then it'll give me let's walk through what it's given us, right? So it gives us the coordinates of Round Rock. I'm not really going to use that. It's going to give me the ID, not going to use that. The main just tells me what it is. And description tells me what the current weather is right now. So overcast clouds. And I am going to use this. And I'm going to do something crazy to make sure the O and the C are capitalized. It's ridiculous how nuts that was. The icon we'll talk about later. We actually use this to show a picture, which is pretty cool. We got temperature, humidity. I'm going to use the minimum and maximum temperatures. It tells us the wind speed. I'm going to use that for my animation. And then the clouds, this is a percentage. I know that because I dug through the API, so it's 90% cloudy, whatever that means, right? This was last time it was updated. And that's another fun thing we get to do. This is called Unix time. This is another thing I had to learn about. And we are going to learn how to convert Unix time into our time. And that's kind of a crazy thing too. This is when the sun rises, when the sun sets, and so forth. So it gives us a lot of cool information that I'm going to throw inside of my app. And once you get your API and you get the data, you need to use 10 of these, at least 10 of these things of information. All right. So I got my API call. It's working. It's everything that I could hoped and dreamed it would. Okay, so this is working. It's exactly what I need. And that's all I'm going to do in the preload. If I don't do it in the preload function, I won't be able to use it in setup. So it's important that we do that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to create canvas. And the canvas I created was 600 wide and 400 tall. And I want the background to be black. And all the words are going to be white. So I give them a fill of 250. Now I'm going to start commenting here because there's actually a bunch of sections I'm going to create. So I'm going to put a comment here to kind of help me find what I need to find here. And this is where comments ended up being pretty helpful. But I am going to run this though to make sure that it's doing what I need it to do already. Okay, cool. Canvas, 600 by 400, and it's black. And then when I start putting things in, hopefully the text will be white. That's what I need. That's what I want. Okay, so the first section I'm going to do is just city name. It's going to be simple. I'm going to print out the city name. And the way I'm going to do that, oh, I need to open that up again, is I can just say, it's right there. Right? I'll be able to pull that from the JSON. Now remember, to call this stuff, we're saving all the data, all of the JSON data inside of this data variable. So we have to go data.name to get Round Rock. Data.id will give us this number, right? Data.chords .lon will give us the longitude, and so forth. Okay, so we got to remember how to navigate through this. So I just want the name, so it's just going to be data.name to get Round Rock. So we will do that. So I want the text size to be 22. And again, I already played with this and got it to be what I wanted it to be. Then I'm going to show some text on there. Then I'm going to say city : space, and then I'm going to add to that data.name. Okay, and I want that to be located at 20 from the left, 40 from the top. Save it. Booyah. There we go. It's pulling it from the API. So that was easy enough. So one piece of data down, right? So the next part I'm going to do is the temperatures. Okay, so I'm going to say text 16 because I want the text to be a little bit smaller now. And I'm going to do, I got fill 255 in here, but I don't need that because I've already declared it up here. So I'm not going to do that again. So I'm going to say text, the current temperature. Okay, and I'm going to put that on 3580. So 35 from the left, 80 from the top. Now I want the temperature to be big in your face. One of the first things you see. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So I'm actually going to bump this up to 30. Okay, and then I'm going to print out text and data. Okay, well, let's go check it out. So how can we get, I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. So how can we get to the current temperature? That's just things, you got to be able to do when you're accessing these APIs here. So the current temperature is right here. So we got data.main, And then we have to see if this is an array or not. Well, it's not. So it's just more name value pairs, key value pairs, right? So we got name.main.temp should give us what we're looking for. If it were to be inside of this array, we would have to say data.weather, and then in the square brackets say 0, 1, 2, or 3, but we'll get that when we get into this part. But for now, it should just be data.main.temp is all we should have to put there. So data.main.temp. Okay, let's take a look at what that looks like. Oh wait, I need to position it. So 30, 130. Okay, there we go. Oh, I'm like, what the heck? The text size didn't change. It's because I didn't put text size in there. There we go. Okay, good. This is kind of what I'm wanting. Now, right now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Okay, 64.7. I want to have Fahrenheit there, degrees Fahrenheit, right? So I went out there. I thought, you could do something like the ampersand stuff, like that. You can't. That doesn't work. So I actually had to go out there and find kind of the escape characters for JavaScript. And to do a degree, it's /x b0f. Kind of weird, but there you go. All right, sweet stuff. Oh, it's not b0f, it's just b0. The f is the f in Fahrenheit. My bad. I was like, how did it get the f there? How did it know? Yeah, so yeah, hopefully that made sense, right? The /xbo or b0, that gives you the degree. Then I have the f there, so it can be Fahrenheit. Okay, cool. And you can change that if you just change the fill, right? And there's all kinds of stuff you could do. You could have if statements. You could say if the temperature is lower than 30, make the text size blue, right? Or if the temperature is above 100, make it red. I mean, there's all kinds of crazy stuff you can do with this. But for now, this is all I'm going to do. But if you wanted to change the color, right, you just do your fill. And then you put in whatever number. But I'm not going to do that. It's kind of the cool thing is you can start throwing logic behind all this data that you're pulling, which I think it's pretty slick. All right, so we're good there. Now I want to display the minimum and maximum temps as well. Okay, so now to do that, I'm going to shrink the text size down to 14. Okay, and then I'm going to print it out. So it's going to be the low is going to be, and then I got to figure out how to get to it. So it's going to be data.main.temp_min and temp_max. So I want the low, so that's the minimum. So data.main.temp_min. Okay, and then I want to throw in the degree as well. So /xbof. And I'm going to do a couple spaces. I'm going to put the whole thing in here because the low and high is going to be right next to each other. So the high is going to be data.main.temp_, was it max? Yeah. Okay, and then same thing, throw in the xbof, b0f rather. Okay, then I'm going to position it. I want it at 10, 165. Uh-oh, something blew up. So F12 that. Invalid hexadecimal escape sequence 27. I think I might have done the slashes. No? guys at home are probably like, dude, oh, there it is. I did O instead of 0. There we go. All right, cool. So low is 60.8 and 66.2. And the cool thing is this is like accurate data. This is exactly what it is right now in Round Rock. So very cool. All right, so we're good with that. So that's all I'm doing with the temperatures. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is the current weather. So the current weather icons and descriptions. And again, you know, like you're not going to be able to just do it like this. You need to kind of plan out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. But since I've already done all this, it makes it a lot easier, right? So, all right, so the next thing I'm going to do is text size. I'll shrink that down to 17. Well, I guess up it a little bit to 17. Okay, now this is where things get a little nuts. And it's kind of funny that I spent so much time trying to figure this out. So if we look at the API, the description is what I want to show up. I wanted to say overcast clouds, and then I'm going to have an icon show up that represents what kind of weather is going on. So overcast clouds, that's perfect, except for I want the O and the C to be capitalized because I have current temp capitalized, city capitalized, low and high, and so forth. It just matches that way. So I got to use regular expressions to do that. It gets a little nuts. I'll explain it the best I can. So here we go. So I'm going to set up a variable called t for text, and I'm going to run a function called capWords. Okay, and I'm going to pass to that function the data.weather 0.description. Okay, so this variable is being equal to a function. So when this function runs, I'm going to return a value that's going to come back to this function call, and it's going to be saved inside of t. So whatever this function returns will then be saved inside of t. Now, what I did is I gave this function called capWords, I gave it some data, and the data that I gave it is data.weather 0.description. So data.weather, it's inside an array, so I have to give it an index. Okay, 0. No, sorry. This is just one. This is the first part inside the array. That's first object in the array. So data.weather.0, which is saying this first thing in the array, dot description. So it's going to give me overcast clouds. All right, so now I'm going to write that function. So function capWords. And I'm going to take this information, the description, and I'm going to store it inside of a variable called str. So I do that so now I can use this str variable inside of this function here, which is going to be, in this case right now, it's going to be overcast clouds. That's like a tongue twister. All right, so it's kind of cool how you can set variables equal to functions. So it's going to run this function and it's going to give this information to the function. So it's going to pass this information over here and it receives it inside of str. So str, for all intents and purposes, is going to be equal to overcast clouds. So now we're going to start writing it. All right, so we're going to have a return statement because we got to return it back to the function call when we get the information that we need. Okay, we're going to do str, which is overcast clouds, and we're going to replace it. We're going to use this replace function. Okay, and the way this works, get this kind of ready, is it's going to find a pattern that we set up, and when it finds that pattern, it's going to replace it with something else that we tell it to replace it with. Okay, and we have to set up that pattern. And I don't know how much you've done with regular expressions, but it's good to take a look at what they are. And W3 Schools has a really good reference. So it sets up a pattern. The way you do patterns is in between these slashes. And the pattern it's looking for is the occurrence of W3 Schools somewhere in a string. Okay, so in this case, W3 Schools is the expression. Okay, and it's a pattern that's going to be used in the search like it says here. And then you can throw in these like modifiers where I is case insensitive matching, G is global, so it'll search everything to find multiple matches. If you don't have the G there, it'll only find one and only do it once, and so forth. Now, where it gets nuts is kind of in here. And this is where it's like, I would never memorize this. It would take me millenniums. So a /W would be find a word character. /W is find a non-word character, like a space or a tab, something like that. And we're going to be using this because we need to find a word character, which is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, basically all the letters. Okay, and then we're going to be using the capital S, which is find a non-white space character. In other words, find a character, right? Something that's not a space or a tab. And I'm not going to lie, these regular expressions, even for me, it can get a little nuts. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it. Okay, and then we got these quantifiers to make it even crazier, and we're going to be using the asterisk, which matches any string that contains 0 or more occurrences of n. In other words, if n was W3 schools, it would try to find something that contains 0 or more occurrences. Okay, I'll walk you through it once we start setting it up. But if you're like, what the heck, you can come here and you can click on like these and they give you good examples. So in this case, the pattern is a word character and it does a global search here. Okay, so it goes through this string here. It's like, well, G is a word character, I is VE, E is, oh, that's a non-word character, so it didn't return it. The 100 word characters, but these are not. I just moved them. The exclamation point and the percentage are not word characters, so it doesn't return them. All right, so these regular expressions and patterns are used to see if something is an email, if something that should be capitalized is capitalized. I mean, this is this type of stuff that they use it to evaluate strings, stuff that people type in. This is the whole stuff behind like form validation and things like that. So the one we're going to use, the pattern we're going to use is /. Okay, remember the pattern is in between these slashes. W, S, and then close out the pattern. Oh, and we need that modifier. So we're doing a global search. In other words, if we find more than one word, we're going to keep going until we've gone through all the words. If we don't have that G in there, it'll only go once and stop on the first match that it finds. So with the replace function here, it needs to know, okay, what's the pattern we're looking for? And when we find that pattern, what do we do? Well, that's the second parameter we put in here. We're going to run another function. We're going to set up another variable called string2. I think, hold on here. All right, so we're going to run another function, throw in this as a parameter, str2. Hold on here. I got all these things going on. I don't think I need those. I don't know where those came from. Okay. All right, now this function is just going to return str2 character at 0, and then to uppercase. And it's going to add to it str2 dot substring, and I'll explain what all this is doing once we get to it, to lowercase. That over a little bit. Okay, get rid of this extra space here. So this is where things start to get a little nuts. All right, so it grabbed the description, passed it here, and then it's basically going to kind of pass it again to here. Okay, and this replace is using this pattern. So this pattern, what it's saying is just a word character that's basically not followed by a non-word character. So if a word character is not followed by a non-word character, then you know it's the end of the word. That's really all I can say there. Because remember, this is saying, if we look at it again, so it finds a word character, A, B, C, D, and so forth. Okay, and this finds a non-white space character. So something that's not a space, something that's not a tab, things like that. And it's finding that has 0 or more occurrences of that non-white space character. So again, this is where the brain kind of goes, what the heck? So it looks for word character that's followed by no more occurrences of a non-white space character, which is basically the end of the word. So this pattern gives us the full word, and it finds however many words there are inside of that string. So in this case, there's going to be 2, right, over class clouds. I'll never be able to say that right. So what it'll do then is once it finds a word, then it'll run this function and pass that word into string 2. So it'll take that word and then it runs this. Okay, so when it finds the word, it puts it into string 2 and then it returns another thing. So string 2 would be, right, cloudy or overcast, char at. So this is finding the first character. So character at is another function that looks at a string and it grabs whatever character you tell it to. I could say character at 1 and it would grab the second character in that string. But we want the first because what do we want to do to it? Oh, we want to capitalize it, right? So it'll take that word, okay, it's going to take the first letter of that word and it's going to capitalize it. And then to that capitalized word, it's going to add to string 2 the substring. Okay, if you're not sure what that does, well, W3 Schools will tell you. Right here. So it extracts parts of a string, but it does it in like you give it a range. Right? So it extracts parts of a string beginning at the character, the specified position, and returns the specified number of characters. So if we take a look at this substring, okay, it's going to take the second letter and it's going to return 4 characters. Okay, so it starts at the second letter because that's what 1 is telling it to do, and it returns 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So it returns LO. Okay, so that's what substring does. It's a way to kind of search through a word and extract different parts that you want it to extract. Now, if you don't specify this second parameter here, it just extracts everything. Okay, so I didn't say how many to return, so it just started at the second one and gave me the whole thing. So that's what we're going on here. So we're saying go to the substring of the second letter in that word and make it all lowercase. So this API could return to me overcast clouds, you know, and it all uppercase and lowercase, and if it was all funky, it doesn't matter. This would force the string to do what I'm telling it to do. Okay. So uses this pattern, basically this tells it to find a word, you know, find a word character followed by a non-white space character that doesn't have anything else after it, the end of the word, right? Find as many of those as you can. When you find them, pass it into string 2. String 2 gets it, capitalizes the first letter of that word, then adds to it all of the letters that follow it, and it lowercases all of them. So once it does that, it then returns that variable, that capitalized word. It returns it to here. Okay, and then this all gets, calculated or whatever. And then this returns it back up to here. Okay, and then it gets returned back up to here and then gets stored inside a T. So it's inception, people. Functions inside of functions that are returning to multiple functions. I mean, everyone's playing catch with everybody, right? So again, this just calculates the uppercase word. It returns it here. Okay, the uppercase word is now here. Okay, and this replaced it, right? So it took the capitalized word and replaced it with what it was before, which is overcast. Okay, so let's go back. So it takes that capitalized word and replaces with what it was before. Okay, so now that turns into the capitalized word, which gets replaced, goes there, and then it gets stored inside of T. I get it. It's a little nuts, right? But that's regular expressions. It gets a little crazy. So because now the capital word, let's see here. Yeah, and this does it to the whole string, right? So that's what's kind of cool, is now inside of T, it's going to hold both words that are capitalized. Because it does it to the first one. Okay, and replace is going to run however many times it finds this pattern. So it finds that pattern in the first word, in the second word, in the third word, if that existed, in fourth word, and so forth. So replace is kind of cool in the fact that it runs however many times it finds the pattern. And that's what that global does. It tells it to go however many times you find the pattern. So every word that it finds, it capitalizes, and then it returns all the words back to string, and then that gets returned back up here and stored inside of T. So now that we've done all that craziness, we can say text T, because that holds both capitalized words, and we position it. I know, a lot of work just to capitalize words, right? We screwed something up, it looks like. Cap words is not defined. Okay, did I misspell something? I did. I said capped words. So cap words, there we go. All right, so yay. Overcast clouds is both capitalized. Hallelujah, right? Okay, now I need to do some fun stuff with images. Now, when I was digging around in the API, I found this right here. Because when I saw these different weird numbers and stuff, I had no idea what was going on. I saw this icon. I'm like, what's that? I don't know. And so I was digging around and I saw this oh, look at this. So depending on the type of weather that's happening, it gives you the icon on what it's supposed to be doing. So if it was clear sky and it was night, it would return 0, 1, N. If it was few clouds and it was day, the icon would be 0, 2, D. When I say icon, I'm talking about this data right here. Okay, so right now, if I take a look at the API, the icon is 04D. So I can come over here and take a look at what that is. 04D means broken clouds. And this is the icon that I could use. So I started thinking, I'm like, that's really cool. So visually, I could represent what the weather's like. So what I did is I went out and I just Googled like weather icons. I threw PNG there, and I think, yeah, this is the one I used. I ended up grabbing this, and I cut these all out. So when it's clear skies, I cut this one out, and then I named it 01d.png. Then I grabbed the night one, and then I saved it out, and I saved it as 01n.png, and so forth. And I went through and created all these, and then here they are. So clear sky during the day, clear sky during the night. A little bit of clouds during the day, a little bit of clouds during the night. If it's, thunderstorming, which is 11D, right? It'll display that. If it's thunderstorming during the night, it'll display that one. So this API is giving me some really cool information that I can now use. And so, yeah, this took a while, but it just makes the app that much cooler. So when it's raining, I'll have an icon display showing me exactly what's going on. So, and the cool thing is this part really wasn't too hard. Okay, so overcast clouds. So we need to have an icon here that displays that. So what you'll need to do if you're going to do this part of the API is just create or go find or something, a bunch of different icons that match up to this, to these. And if you're not sure how to get there, just Google open weather map weather conditions. Spelled it wrong, but it's right here. And then when you get to this page, it'll kind of show you all of the different icons and what they mean. So now I know what the different icons can show up. These right here, I can now use that and just add a PNG at the end, and now I can display the correct icon. So that's what we're going to do next. Okay, now usually you have to load images in the preload function. I didn't want to do that, so there is a way you can load images and all in the setup function, and this is how you do it. So load image. Okay, and the image I want to load is icons / now I need to grab these icons though, and I got to put them in my folder, my weather folder here, so I can use them. There we go. All right, so icons plus, and we just need to pull the icon name out of the API. So it's going to be data.weather 0, because it's the first object here, dot icon. So data.weather, it's the first array in there, dot icon, and then what do we need to add to it? We need to add to the extension, right? Because they're all PNGs. So dot PNG. So the load image function needs to know two things. It needs to know, okay, what image are you loading? And then where am I going to put it? And I'm going to do that with another function. So function weather. And what it's doing here is it's passing this string, which is going to contain the icon number.png. So in my case right now, it would be 04d.png in the folder of icons. It's going to take all this whole string, and it's going to pass it here inside of weather, so I can use weather inside of my function. And then now I'm going to place the image on the page. So I'm going to use the image that's stored inside of weather, and I'm going to place it. So 26090 is the location, and then I have to say how big I want the icon to be. And I want it to be just its normal size, so I'm going to say 00. And what that does is it just takes its actual size, which is 90 by 90, and it'll just display it that big. If I wanted it to be 45 by 45, I could change it there. So again, loads the image. The image that it loads is icons /, so it's going to go inside the icons folder. It's going to go out there. Oh, I forgot my plus. It's on the wrong side. So data.weather 0 icon. So data.weather 0 icon is going to give me 04d. So 04d.png. So it's going to go in here and it will display this one, 04d.png. So it's 04d.png inside of the icons folder, stores that inside of weather, stores that whole path in there. And then this is the command that actually puts images on the page. So image, the path to the image, puts it at 260 from the left, 90 from the top, keeps it the same size. Oh, and oh, hold on. Maybe I did something wrong here. I am going to take a look at this. I'll be back in 2 seconds. Okay, I think I have this in the wrong spot. This all needs to be in setup. So if I take a look at this, setup ends right here. Well, load image needs to be inside of setup. So I need to get rid of that. There we go. I'm going to hit enter a couple more times so I don't make that mistake again. All right, should work now, hopefully. Let's see. Let's load the preview here. This is amazing. Missing that at 42. So missing a parenthesis at 42. Oh, I think I closed that out. So I'm going to move that up here. Throw it in there. Make sure we got that right. Yep, so that parenthesis lines up there. That curly lines up there. That's exactly what I want. Oops, I need to tab this over a little bit. All right, there we go. Okay, so it loaded that image. If I refresh the API here, so it's 04D, yep, so it pulled up that 04D.png. So you can use this icon that continuously changes depending on the type of weather. Just add a .png on it, make sure you name all these correctly, and now you have images that reflect what the weather's like. It's not really lined up. That's kind of the one thing that sucks, is because all these things are updating all the time. Sometimes the, the layout and stuff kind of gets messed up. But I guess for now I can just bring that over a little bit. Oops, that was too far. Let's bring this here. Then let's move that over. Yeah, that's good. And that's another thing you want to pay attention to, is make sure all of these images are kind of the same size. They're about in the same position, or you are going to start getting some weird looking stuff. All right, so now we have that. I think because it's been a little nuts, I think I'll cut this video in half. We'll do the next part in the next video, but just see if you can get it this far. And the next part that we'll do here is have the cloud percentage stuff show up here.